The rain fell hard over the small farming village of Arlen's Hill. Mud covered the roads, and cold wind blew through the broken fences. Most villagers had locked their doors, afraid of what was out there tonight. But not Eli. Eli was a simple farmer, a man of strong hands and a kind heart. He lived alone on the edge of the fields, far from the gossip and laughter of the town. He didn't like talking much, but when he did, people listened. Tonight, he was out with a lantern in his hand, searching for the source of a strange sound that echoed from the forest. A cry, not human, not animal. It was weak, trembling, and full of pain. Eli's boots sank into the mud as he followed the sound. The light from his lantern shook, throwing shadows across the trees. And then he saw her. She was lying beside a fallen tree, covered in bruises and dirt. Her skin shimmered faintly, purple and blue, like starlight trapped under glass. Her hair was tangled with leaves, her clothes torn and soaked with rain. And when she opened her eyes, they glowed, a soft silver light that made Eli stop breathing for a second. She wasn't human. She was the thing the villagers had been whispering about for days. The smelly, ugly alien girl who had crashed near the riverbank and disappeared into the woods. They said she ate chickens, stole water, and cursed anyone who came near. But Eli didn't see a monster. He saw someone terrified, hungry, and alone. "Hey," he whispered, kneeling down beside her. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." She flinched, backing against the tree, her breathing fast and shaky. Eli could see her skin glowing brighter as she panicked. "Please," she said in broken English. "No hurt, no cage." Eli placed his lantern down slowly. "I'm not here to cage you," he said softly. "You're hurt. Let me help." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, with trembling fingers, she reached toward his hand. Her skin was warm, too warm, and her pulse quick. Eli lifted her gently, wrapping his coat around her small frame. She was lighter than he expected, like carrying a bird that had forgotten how to fly. By the time they reached his farmhouse, the rain had stopped. Eli laid her near the fire, covered her with blankets, and gave her water. She drank it slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. Her name, she whispered, was Lyra. Outside, the villagers had seen him. A few had followed at a distance, and by morning, the whispers spread like wildfire. "The fool brought it home," one woman said at the market. "That alien thing will poison him," said another. "First his farm will rot, then his mind," laughed an old man. By afternoon, everyone in Arlen's Hill knew. The farmer had taken in the alien, and they mocked him for it. They laughed as he worked in the fields. They shouted cruel jokes when he passed by with supplies. But Eli didn't care. Lyra needed care, and that was all that mattered. Each day she grew stronger, her strange wounds healing faster than any human could. She helped him water the crops, though she didn't understand the tools. She smiled shyly when the chickens followed her around. And sometimes, at sunset, Eli caught her humming, a melody that sounded like stars singing. Still, deep inside, he wondered, where had she come from? And why did she keep looking at the sky with that silent fear? Sometimes she would wake up at night, whispering words he couldn't understand, her eyes filled with tears. He wanted to ask her, but something told him not to, not yet. Because behind those glowing eyes, there was a story too painful to speak. And somewhere far beyond the clouds, that story was still waiting to reach them. Days passed quietly on Eli's farm. The rain gave way to sunlight, and the crops began to rise again. Lyra spent most mornings sitting near the fence, watching the sky with her silver eyes. She spoke little, her English slow and broken, but her smile carried warmth. Eli fixed her torn clothes with old fabric, gave her a place to sleep, and taught her to plant seeds. Yet the peace did not last. In the village, rumors grew louder each day. Children threw pebbles toward the path that led to Eli's house. Old men spat on the ground whenever they saw him in town, and merchants refused to sell him fresh supplies, saying he carried alien sickness. One morning, Eli went to the market for grain. He could feel the eyes on him, sharp as knives. Two men whispered near the stall. "They say she glows at night, and that he's bewitched by her smell," the other replied with a laugh. Eli kept silent, paid for his things, and walked away. He had never cared for gossip before, but this was different. Now it wasn't just laughter, it was hate growing roots. When he reached home, he found Lyra waiting at the gate. Her expression soft, but sad. They not like me, she said slowly. Eli sighed, wiping the sweat from his brow. They don't understand you. That's all, he answered. People fear what they don't know. Lyra looked down at her hands, the faint glow fading as if she tried to hide it. I try to be quiet, she murmured. I no want trouble. Eli smiled gently. You're not trouble, he said. You're family now. That night, Lyra helped him by the fire. She had begun learning to cook, though she found human food strange. The smell of warm bread filled the room, and for the first time, she laughed. It was a soft, musical sound that made the farmhouse feel alive. Eli couldn't help but smile back. He hadn't heard laughter in this house since his parents died years ago. But outside, unseen in the darkness, someone was watching. A group of villagers stood behind the fence, holding torches and sticks. One of them whispered, "Tomorrow we'll drive her out." "She's a curse," said another. "And he's a fool." The next morning, when Eli woke, he found strange marks near his field. The fences were broken, chickens missing, and words burned into the soil. Alien witch. Lyra stood behind him, trembling, her eyes wide with fear. "I didn't," she stammered. "I know," he said quickly. "I know you didn't." But anger burned in his chest. He walked to the village, stood in front of the tavern where most of them gathered. "You touch my land again," he warned, "and I'll make sure you pay for every plank and fence you break." The crowd fell silent. No one dared to meet his eyes. Eli's voice carried the strength of a man who worked under sun and storm. That night, he sat outside with Lyra, the stars bright above them. She traced one of them with her finger, whispering a word he couldn't understand. "What does it mean?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then answered, "Home." Eli looked at her, then at the endless sky. "Do you want to go back?" he asked. Her eyes filled with tears. "My people gone," she whispered. Ship crash, fire, noise, no more sky. Eli felt his throat tighten. He had lost people too. To war, to hunger, to time. But hers was a loss he couldn't imagine. He reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here," he said. "I'll protect you." And for a moment, under the glowing stars, she believed him. But far away, in the forest beyond the river, lights flickered, cold, metallic, and not from Earth. Something had found her trail. And as the wind whispered through the crops, even the soil seemed to sense what was coming. The peace of the farmer's home was about to break. And neither he nor the alien girl knew that their quiet kindness had just become a beacon to the stars. The next evening, the air over Arlen's hill grew still. No wind, no bird songs, only the heavy silence that made even the insects hide. Eli sat by the porch, sharpening his old farming blade. Lyra was inside, humming softly as she cleaned the floor. Her voice was fragile but sweet, echoing like a memory of peace. Suddenly, a low hum rolled across the valley. Eli looked up, squinting toward the dark forest line. A strange blue glow flickered among the trees, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra froze, the bucket slipping from her hands. Her skin began to shimmer again, brighter than before. "No," she whispered. "They find they come." Eli stood, confused but alert. "Who's coming?" he asked, but she didn't answer. She ran to the window, her silver eyes wide with fear. The hum grew louder, turning into a deep, vibrating roar. And then the sky cracked open with light. 3 small ships, metallic and silent, broke through the clouds, circling the valley like vultures. Eli's heart pounded. He grabbed Lyra's arm gently, trying to pull her away from the window. "What are they?" "Your people?" he asked. She shook her head quickly. "No. Hunters, not my people. They take broken ones like me." He didn't understand everything she said, but the terror in her voice was enough. The ships hovered low, their lights sweeping over the fields. When one beam touched the farmhouse roof, the old wood began to hum faintly. Eli blew out the lantern and pulled her toward the cellar door. "Come on, down here," he whispered. They climbed into the dark space beneath the floorboards, the air cold and still. He closed the trapdoor above them, covering it with a rug. Outside, a loud metallic sound echoed. A door opening, boots hitting soil. Voices followed, harsh and mechanical. Target trace confirmed, biological signature stable. Eli clenched his fists, his blade trembling in his hand. Lyra covered her mouth, trying not to make a sound. Her glowing skin dimmed slowly until it faded into soft blue veins under her arms. Minutes felt like hours. They heard footsteps above them, wood creaking, furniture moving. Then silence again, followed by a loud crash as the main door burst open. Scan complete, one voice said. Subject proximity within 10 meters. Eli held his breath, ready to strike if they found the trapdoor. But before they could open it, a distant shout came from the field. Another villager, old Tomas, had wandered close, drawn by the noise. "Hey, what in God's name are you doing?" he yelled. The soldiers turned toward him instantly, their helmets glowing red. Eli heard a short scream, then a heavy thud. Lyra gasped softly, her hands trembling. "They kill," she whispered. "They no take prisoner." Eli's jaw tightened. He pushed the trapdoor open just enough to peek. Through the crack, he saw the men, tall, in silver armor, faces hidden behind black glass. Their weapons hummed with faint red energy, burning the soil wherever they stepped. He saw old Tomas lying motionless, smoke rising from his coat. Eli's stomach twisted, but there was no time to grieve. He turned back to Lyra. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll search every inch." She nodded weakly, her body shaking. "I can hide us," she said, "but need touch earth." Eli hesitated, but then helped her crawl out of the cellar. She knelt on the ground outside, placing her glowing hands on the soil. The light spread slowly, crawling through the mud like silver roots. The ships overhead flickered, their beams cutting out for a moment. The soldiers shouted, confused, turning their heads upward. Lyra fell forward, exhausted. Eli caught her, whispering, "What did you do?" Her breathing was shallow. "They, blind now, not long," she murmured. Eli didn't wait. He lifted her again and ran toward the hills. Behind him, the farmhouse exploded in flames as one of the ships fired down. The blast lit up the valley like daylight. They didn't stop running until they reached the river. Eli set her down on the cold stones, his chest burning. Lyra looked at the reflection of the burning house in the water, tears in her silver eyes. "My home. Gone again," she whispered. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder, his own voice breaking. "Then we build another," he said softly. "But first, we survive." Above them, the ships circled again, scanning the forest edges. The hunt wasn't over. And as the smoke rose from the fields, the quiet farmer finally realized. This wasn't just about kindness anymore. It was about protecting the only soul in the universe who had ever truly seen him. The night after the fire, the forest wrapped them in silence. Ash fell from the sky like gray snow. Eli carried a small pack and a blanket, while Lyra followed close, weak but determined. Her glow was faint now, hidden under layers of mud and torn cloth. She looked more human than alien, yet her silver eyes still shimmered through the dark. They moved toward the hills, where caves hid between the rocks. Eli knew the path well. His father once hunted deer here. Now he hunted safety. Every rustle made him freeze, listening for the hum of ships. But the forest stayed quiet, too quiet. When dawn came, they reached a small cave above the valley. Lyra sank to the ground, exhausted, her breathing shallow, her hands trembling. Eli knelt beside her, offering the last of their water. "You rest," he said softly. "I'll keep watch." Hours passed. In the distance, the village smoked, burned fields and shattered roofs. The hunters had found Arlen's Hill. Eli watched helplessly as the sky flickered with red lights. He thought of the people who mocked him. Even they didn't deserve this. When Lyra woke, she saw the worry in his eyes. "They find village?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes, they're looking for you." Lyra turned away, tears running down her cheeks. "My fault, all," she whispered. "No," he said firmly. "Their hate is their choice, not yours." She looked at him, really looked, as if no one had ever spoken to her that way before. For a long moment, the cave felt warm, filled with something quiet and human. That peace broke when the ground trembled. A low rumble, followed by the metallic echo of engines. Eli grabbed her hand, pulling her deeper into the cave. Light flashed at the entrance, blue and sharp. A beam swept across the walls, burning every shadow it touched. "They find," Lyra whispered. "Hide." Eli pulled her behind a rock, clutching his blade. Voices echoed again. "Thermal trace confirmed," one said. The hunters stepped closer, their suits humming. Lyra closed her eyes, her hands pressed to the stone floor. Eli didn't understand what she was doing until the rocks began to vibrate. The ground split open with a deep groan. Dust filled the air, blinding light swallowed the cave. When it cleared, the entrance had collapsed. The hunters' voices faded outside, shouting in confusion. Lyra fell into Eli's arms, her energy drained. "You saved us again," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "Earth, listen to me." Eli held her close, feeling her warmth against the cold cave air. He didn't know how long they stayed like that, only that the world outside had turned silent again. When she finally spoke, her voice was small but steady. "My people make mistake," she said. "They take others from worlds, make weapon. I run, because I know want kill." Eli's breath caught. "You refuse to fight?" She nodded weakly. "They call me broken. They send hunters to end me." Eli stared at her, realizing what that meant. She wasn't a threat. She was a survivor. And now, because he had helped her, Earth itself was marked. He stood, looking toward the crack of daylight that still shone through the rocks. "Then we'll have to show them," he said. "Show them humans aren't afraid to protect what's right." Lyra blinked slowly, unsure if he truly understood how big this danger was. But when she saw his eyes, steady and kind, she believed him. For the first time since her ship crashed, she felt hope. Outside, the hunters regrouped, scanning the terrain again. But above them, another light appeared, softer, golden, descending from the clouds. It wasn't one of the hunters' ships. It was something older, grander, with symbols glowing in the same pattern as Lyra's skin. Her eyes widened. "My mother's crest," she whispered. "They come for me." Eli frowned, confused. "More hunters." She shook her head slowly. "No, my people, the last ones." As the golden ship hovered above the valley, its hum filled the air like a heartbeat. The war between mercy and vengeance was no longer a secret, and Eli's small act of kindness had just drawn the attention of worlds. The golden ship drifted silently above the valley. Its light painted the burned fields in soft amber, making the ruins of Arlen's Hill glow like dawn after a storm. Eli and Lyra stepped out from the cave entrance, blinking against the brightness. The air around them shimmered, gentle and warm. For the first time in days, the forest felt alive again. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She whispered words in her language, sounds that rose and fell like a song. The ship answered with a deep hum, a vibration that shook the stones beneath their feet. From its base, a beam of golden light touched the ground, and a figure appeared, tall, graceful, and covered in silver markings that pulsed softly with light. "Lyra of the Kellen." The voice said, calm yet commanding. "You survived." Lyra took a hesitant step forward. "Mother," she breathed, her voice trembling. Eli's heart tightened. He suddenly felt small between two worlds colliding. The alien woman looked at him, her eyes bright and ancient. "You are the human who sheltered my child," she said, her words almost perfect. Eli nodded slowly, unsure what to say. "I did what anyone should," he replied. Her gaze softened, but sadness lingered there. "My people owe you a debt," she said. "But we also bring warning. The hunters will not stop. They have already called for cleansing. This planet is now seen as corrupted." Eli's stomach dropped. "Cleansing?" he asked. Lyra turned to him quickly, her voice shaking. "They destroy world where I hide. They call it purge." The golden ship's hum grew louder, as if agreeing. Lyra's mother reached out her hand toward Eli. "You have proven kindness," she said. "Come with us. Your world will fall, but you can live among the stars." Eli stared at her hand, the glow reflecting in his eyes. He thought of his farm, the soil he had turned with his hands, the smell of rain, the sound of wind through wheat. He thought of the villagers, cruel yet human, and of the graves of his parents beneath the old oak. And finally, he looked at Lyra. She watched him silently, tears forming again. "If you stay, you die," she whispered. Eli smiled faintly, tired but calm. "Maybe," he said, "but this is my home." He turned to her mother. "If you take her, make sure she's safe." Lyra shook her head. "I know leave you," she said, her voice breaking. "I belong here now." Her mother stepped closer, frustration and grief in her glowing eyes. "You don't understand, child. The cleansing has already begun." Above them, thunder rolled though the sky was clear. A second fleet appeared, Dark, angular ships, their weapons glowing red. The hunters had found them again. The forest trembled as energy bolts cut through the air, scorching trees to ash. Eli grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her behind a fallen log. "Can your ship fight?" he shouted. Her mother raised her arms, symbols on her armor blazing. The golden ship flared brighter, firing streaks of light that tore through the enemy fleet. The sky became a storm of color, gold against red, hope against hatred. Lyra covered her ears, the sound almost unbearable. Eli held her close as debris rained around them. Then came a blinding flash, and silence. When he opened his eyes, the forest was gone, replaced by a crater of glass and smoke. The golden ship hovered low, flickering like a dying star. Lyra's mother stumbled toward them, her light dimming. "It is done," she whispered, "but the cost too high." She looked at her daughter, then at Eli. "Take her, human, protect her heart. It holds what remains of our world." Her body dissolved into shimmering particles, scattering into the wind. Lyra screamed, reaching out, but only golden dust touched her hands. Eli wrapped his arms around her as she collapsed, sobbing. Above them, the last light of the golden ship faded into the clouds. Hours passed before Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft as the breeze. "She saved us," she said, "but I lost all again." Eli looked at her, his eyes heavy but steady. "You didn't lose everything," he said. "You still have me." For the first time since the crash, she smiled through her tears, her silver eyes reflecting the first light of morning. And as the sun rose over the broken valley, the farmer and the alien girl stood side by side, not as fugitives anymore, but as the last bridge between two worlds that almost destroyed each other. Days turned into weeks after the golden ship vanished. The valley had grown quiet again, but the silence was strange, too heavy, too empty. Ash still covered the ground, glowing faintly at night like dying embers of a forgotten war. Eli and Lyra had made a small shelter near the river, using wood from fallen trees and the wreckage left behind. The world around them was scarred, but they were alive. Lyra spent her days near the water, tracing shapes in the mud with her fingers. Each pattern glowed faintly, fading as the current washed it away. Eli watched her from the distance, wondering what she was drawing. "They are memories," she said once, when he asked. "My mother's world, stars, rivers, homes, gone now." Her voice carried both sorrow and strength. Eli nodded quietly. He had stopped trying to fix the fences or plant crops. There was no one left to sell to, no one left to laugh or argue. The villagers who survived had fled the valley, afraid of the ships that still patrolled the skies far away. To them, this land was cursed. One evening, as the red sun dipped low, Eli found Lyra sitting near the old oak, the same tree that shaded his parents' graves. Her hand rested on the soil, and faint lights shimmered beneath her fingers. "What are you doing?" he asked softly. "Talking," she said, her tone distant. "To who?" She looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. "To Earth," she said. "It listens when heart is true." Eli didn't fully understand, but he felt something. The air warmer, the ground humming quietly beneath his feet. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering in her own language, and for a moment, he swore he heard voices answer, faint, like echoes of the wind. When she opened her eyes again, she looked frightened. "They come again," she whispered. "But not hunters, not my people either." That night, the stars flickered oddly, moving in strange patterns. Eli stood beside her, holding his lantern. "What are they?" he asked. She stared upward, her face pale under the silver light. "Humans," she said softly. "Your armies, they see what happened here." Eli's chest tightened. Of course, the explosions, the lights, the ships, someone must have seen them. And now the government, the soldiers, maybe scientists, would come to find out the truth. "They'll want answers," he muttered. "They'll take you away, experiment on you." Lyra's hand gripped his arm, her voice shaking. "Then we run again?" Eli looked at her and shook his head slowly. "No, running won't save us this time." The next morning, smoke appeared on the horizon, not alien smoke this time, but human. Vehicles rolled through the broken road, armored trucks with strange antennas. Eli and Lyra hid among the trees, watching as soldiers searched the ruins. Their leader, a woman in a gray coat, knelt near the crater, holding a scanner that beeped softly. Unidentified radiation trace, she said. Mark the area and find the source. Lyra turned to Eli, panic in her voice. They find me soon. Eli thought for a long moment, then took a deep breath. Maybe it's time they see, he said quietly. She frowned, not understanding. He continued. They laughed when I brought you home. They feared what they didn't know. Maybe now, they need to see what humanity really means. Before she could answer, he stood up and walked out into the open. The soldiers turned their weapons toward him instantly. Wait, he shouted. I can explain. The commander stepped forward, eyes narrowed. Identify yourself. My name's Eli Varen, he said. I live here, or what's left of it. She lowered her weapon slightly, studying him. There were reports of non-human entities here, she said. What do you know? Eli glanced toward the trees where Lyra hid. He could lie, protect her one more time. But then he remembered her mother's words, protect her heart. And he realized protecting her meant more than hiding her. He looked back at the commander. She's not your enemy, he said slowly. She saved me, and maybe this whole planet. The soldiers murmured among themselves, uncertain. The commander hesitated, then gestured for him to continue. Show us, she said. Eli turned toward the trees and nodded once. Lyra stepped out, her silver eyes glowing softly. The soldiers froze, weapons half raised, fear flickering in their faces. But Lyra didn't move or speak. She simply lifted her hand, and the air shimmered with light. Images appeared, her destroyed home world, the hunters, the golden ship's sacrifice, all playing like memories made of starlight. When it ended, the soldiers stood speechless. Even the commander's hard expression had softened. No one spoke for a long moment. Then she said quietly, maybe we were wrong about what's out there. Eli smiled faintly, glancing at Lyra. Maybe, he said, but we still have a lot to learn. Above them, the stars burned brighter, as if listening. For the first time in human history, kindness had become humanity's greatest weapon. And somewhere beyond those stars, new eyes watched, not with fear, but with hope. The morning after Lyra revealed her memories, the valley no longer felt silent. For the first time in centuries, humans and beings from beyond the stars stood in the same light, without fear. The soldiers didn't lower their weapons completely, but their eyes were different now. Less anger, more wonder. The commander, who once spoke like steel, now spoke softly. Whatever you are, she said to Lyra, you've shown us something we can't erase. Lyra only nodded, her silver eyes tired but peaceful. She had shared her pain, her history, her loss, and somehow, it had made the humans listen. Eli stayed beside her, silent, watching as men in uniforms took samples of the soil and the ash. They scanned the sky, looking for more ships, but none came. The war was over, at least for now. As night returned, campfires lit the broken valley. Eli sat near the flames with Lyra and a few soldiers who no longer saw her as a threat. They asked her questions. About her people, her mother, her world. Lyra answered as best she could, her voice carrying a sadness that made even the hardest soldiers fall quiet. When she spoke of her mother's sacrifice, no one mocked her, no one doubted her tears. Later, when the fire died down, the commander approached Eli. You've changed how we see everything, she said. Eli shook his head. I didn't do anything special, he said. I just helped someone who needed help. She gave a faint smile. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. But peace never comes without a price. That night, a low vibration filled the air again, not from the sky this time, but from beneath the earth. Lyra stood suddenly, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. They come, she whispered. Not hunters, the echo. Eli frowned. What's the echo? She hesitated, fear creeping into her voice. When Mother's ship fell, it left signal in ground, her heart still there, calling home. The ground shook harder, the river glowing faintly with golden light. Everyone backed away as cracks spread through the soil. From the center of the valley, a column of light burst upward, reaching the clouds. The soldiers shouted, grabbing their gear. Lyra stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. It is her, she whispered, Mother's last gift. From the light, shapes formed, faint silhouettes of her people, made of energy and memory. They didn't speak words, but Eli felt their voices inside his mind. You cared for our child, human. You showed her mercy, You saved our legacy. The figures turned toward Lyra, touching her face with hands made of light. Your path is now yours, daughter of two worlds. Then the light began to fade, leaving behind a single object, a crystal sphere pulsing softly with gold. Lyra picked it up carefully, her eyes wide with recognition. It holds my world's memory, she said. Songs, stories, all inside. Eli smiled. Then you can rebuild someday, he said. She looked at him for a long moment. Not without you, she whispered. The commander stepped closer. We can help, she said quietly. Humanity can protect her, learn from her. Eli turned to Lyra, his heart heavy. You can go with them, he said softly. You'll be safe. But Lyra shook her head, her silver eyes shimmering in the firelight. I know what's safe, she said. I want home you. He laughed quietly, though his throat burned. Then we'll build it again, he said. A farm, a sky, a place where no one laughs at kindness. And so they stayed. Days turned into seasons. Humans began to visit the valley not as soldiers, but as learners. Scientists studied the crystal sphere and called it the heart of two worlds. From its energy, they built new technologies, peaceful and clean. But no one forgot the story of the farmer and the alien girl who taught them what humanity really meant. One night, years later, Eli sat on his porch, the stars bright and endless. Beside him, Lyra rested her head on his shoulder, her glow soft and calm. She looked up and whispered, "They laugh no more." Eli smiled. "No," he said, "because now they understand." The wind carried the sound of distant laughter, children playing, human and alien together. The golden fields of Arlen's Hill swayed again, full of life. And somewhere among the stars, a new light flickered, a promise kept. Because one man once looked at a stranger and saw not a monster, but a heart.